Bienvenidos. Welcome to Citizen by CNN. We'll be focusing today on the elections and the importance of the Latino vote, but especially we're doing it in the midst of Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you for joining us. I want to introduce our panelists. We will be discussing this for the next 45 minutes. We welcome your questions. Thank you all for joining Citizen by CNN. As you see on the screen, we have Jaime Camil. He's on top on left. I have really not a lot to add to his distinguished career, almost 3 decades as an actor, producer, director, and right now his series El Rey on Netflix was number one worldwide in non-English programming, and it's been a very, very successful series highlighting the life of one of the icons of not only of Mexico but of Latin America. Next to him, Mayor Eric Garcetti, the 42nd mayor of Los Angeles, who happens to be the grandson and great grandson of immigrants from Mexico and from Eastern Europe. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for joining us. Rosario Marin, right below, she was the treasurer of the United States. She is an activist and she's also a strategist. Thank you for joining us. She's been opening doors and shattering glass ceilings for a very long time. And last but not least, Helen Iris Torres. She is the CEO of Hispanas Organizadas, Organized for Political Equality, HOPE, which has a leadership um, fund that has, to this day, prepared 180 Latinas to become state and local commissioners or appointed to those commissions, and more than 200 Latinas in uh, have joined nonprofit boards. An initiative to bring Latino power. But I want to bring a subject we should be celebrating, and we will be celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, but we're doing it in the middle of a very dark moment. And I want to start with you, Mr. Mayor. We have the resignation of Nury Martinez, who was president of the City Council of LA. She resigned to that position, and then she resigned yesterday. Late yesterday, she put out a statement and she resigned to her position in the City Council. But other two city council members are being asked to resign as a fourth member of the political elite in your city. You reacted to this resignation. What is your feeling today, and what do you think? What impact do you think um, this resignation from Nury Martinez, but this scandal, for those of you who might not be aware, the LA Times published a conversation over an hour of conversation between Il Cedillo, Kevin De Leon, Nury Martinez, and there were racial uh, statements made, other type of statements that are considered unacceptable and have led to the resignation of the president of the council and for the call for these other members to resign. Mr. Mayor, your reaction now that Nury Martinez is gone, and what impact will this have on your city? The city council was already facing challenges before this was leaked.
Well, thank you, Juan Carlos, first of all, for having us here today. And it's great to be here with my fellow panelists on what has been a heartbreaking week in Los Angeles. I think the simple truth is that we all feel broken as a city, certainly as Latinos and Latinas. We feel that we know hate and trauma has affected our community for centuries, certainly for generations. And when we see ourselves or members of our community re-traumatizing other communities of color or within our own community, it is just something that calls us all to bring forward kindness, love, justice, and accountability. So I welcomed Nury Martinez's resignation. I called on all three to resign. The best thing for them, but also the best thing for our city. Our city is very strong. It is filled with immigrants. It is filled with diversity. It is filled with a sense of belonging. But somebody once said, hate lives always with us. It just goes under the rocks, and sometimes it crawls out. And it's on all of us to make sure that we're redoubling the colorism in our own community and confronting it, the racism that we see, the anti-Indigenous feelings that we feel. Unfortunately, these words were an equal opportunity discriminator. It was like a full Yahtzee card of insults. So women, LGBTQ folks, Indigenous, Armenian, Jews, Koreans, everybody was swept up in this. I always say, don't feel these things in your heart, and you won't say them privately. And if you don't say them privately, they will never be exposed publicly. We must do better, and certainly as Latinos, who are so broad and welcoming in terms of the racial backgrounds and the indigenous backgrounds that we contain need to model better behavior for ourselves and for this world.
Do you expect this will erode trust between not only citizens and their council, but between activists and people who participate in politics, both in the Latino community and the African American community in LA? Because there were also disparaging remarks about other politicians in the African American community.
Of course it will, but it's on us to decide how long that legacy lasts. This is the moment to join hands with each other across these coalitions. Certainly, I convened religious leaders together in the birthplace of our city, La Placita, el pueblo de Los Angeles, and we came together and we said not just what we are against, clearly. We're against racism, we're against the homophobia, the sexism, the anti-indigenous words that we heard, and the lack of transparency, by the way, when decisions are being made. But we also said what we are for. And I think, as Martin Luther King once said, the only thing that can destroy hate is not more hate, it's love, it's kindness, it's those things that we can bring to bear. And I feel very optimistic that we are here in a city where these words do not speak for us, but it requires all of us to go deep into our own hearts. We might not harbor feelings as extreme as this, but there is nobody immune from that self-examination, that transformation, and that growth, and most importantly, to find the common projects together to create economic opportunity, reform our education system, and make sure that Latinos are fighting for the rights of Black Americans. Latinos are fighting for the rights of indigenous people who don't speak Spanish even as their second language, who come here as immigrants from our Oaxacan community and other places. That requires us not just to say the right things right now, but to continue to do the right things that I'm very proud we have been doing and that we must double down on now in this situation.
Moments of crisis are moments to rebuild and go ahead. Do you think this is a moment for LA to start and build a new consensus? And how do you do it when we have an upcoming election, when people see what is said of them by people who represent them and have for years told them they're working on their behalf? And how much does this show that we're not very different in many terms, regardless of our skin color? The prejudices and the ideas that foster aren't exclusive to one group.
That's very well put. I think these moments do define us. I know that we will come out of this stronger, and I know that we will come out of this more loving, because I see that spirit every single day. I saw Latinos knock on the doors of their African American neighbors to see if they were okay during the pandemic. I saw coalitions of people come together when we realized that some of our indigenous communities that come from Mexico and Central America were affected by the pandemic and by COVID at a higher level. And so we started changing how we communicate and making sure languages that few of us knew are being translated so that they could get the information to save their lives. I think this is the moment, too, when we have to say, just because we are Latinos with our own oppression, with our own history, that never gives us an excuse to oppress others or to bring hatred forward. We can't just have chips on our shoulder. We have to make sure that that history informs us, not just about our own future, but that we co-write that future, that we do things like call for criminal justice reform, that we have basic income programs around our country to break the back of poverty. Or like today, I'm here with the president who's visiting Los Angeles, that we build the infrastructure and the jobs and the future. I always say it's good to talk, it's better to do. And we can talk about this, and we need to vent, to be angry and outraged. But tomorrow we have to find those projects where a Black worker and a Latino worker are in the same tunnel building a subway to improve the conditions in our city and to save our planet by getting us out of cars. Those are the sorts of things that we will build long-term relationships, know each other, trust each other, love each other, and be able to work together and build a city of belonging.
Now I want to go to Rosario Marin. And Rosario, your reaction to what you heard and to what's happened since.
Well, I was like most people in LA, heartbroken. I was sick to my stomach for a number of reasons. First of all, because it is inexcusable. The words, the language, what was said is just inexcusable. There's no room anywhere in the world for that kind of language, that kind of behavior. Uh, but I'm also hurt because it will impact the Latino community as in the leadership positions that we have. I mean, Nuri was the first uh, Latina president of the city council, it, Kevin De Leon, the first senator pro tem of California in more than 100 years. Gil Cedillo, a person who I admire for his work regarding the driver's license to undocumented immigrants. I mean, these are people who have worked so hard to be in those positions of power. And what this means is that the work, we still have a lot more work. And as the mayor said, this touched us all. It broke my heart. I was sick because I also know that um, that the power that they were seeking was um, something that they all have been fighting for, but the means and the way, that is not the way to do it. So I was heartbroken for all three of them. I was heartbroken for our community, but I'm also very determined that this will make us stronger. As painful as it is, it will make us stronger as a community. We need to do better. We need to get better leaders in our country, in our cities, and the fight continues. And I mean the fight for better leadership. That's what I mean. It was a heartbreaking moment for many of us who have worked so hard along many of these leaders to improve the conditions of our communities. So I'm hopeful that we have learned from this, that we grow from this, and that we become a more inclusive community.
Helen, um, hope is preparing leaders for the future. And in this case, it was a president of the city council after a very hard fought career that had to resign not only from being president, but also as a councilwoman. What is your reaction to this, and what can be learned from this experience when, in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, this face of, well, something that happens in every community, but this moment is for our community? What is your reaction?
Well, Hope did come out with a statement, a pretty strong statement, Monday afternoon as we deliberated as a council of women leaders. And the statement was very clear that we understood that was unacceptable, even if these were individuals that we amplified as role models in our community, that we've honored in the past for breaking the glass ceiling, individuals that are part of our community in every way. And Rosario did an incredible job of outlining their contributions, but you cannot sweep aside what was said and what was demonstrated um, as a way to seek power in an incorrect way, in a way that is not inclusive. And that's not what LA City is about. That is not who we should be about as Latinos. We should always be very inclusive of all voices. That's why we celebrate the first, because we get so excited about seeing our voices being included, our voices being heard. But it's not to, when our voices are heard, doesn't mean that others should not. And it shouldn't be ever at the cost of others. It should be really strengthening our democracy. So we did ask for the resignation of all three council members. We also are looking to ensure that there's redistricting reform, to really have actionable movement on this. We talked about this is not a teachable moment. This is an actionable moment. We need to show who we are as Angelinos, as proud Latinos, that we can rise above this and we can do better. And it is definitely a moment to rebuild, but lifting up new leadership. That should be something that is a call for all to step up at this moment and to be the leaders that we want to see in community and that we know we have. We cannot be defined by three individuals. And that is the strength of the Latino community. We don't go under the banner of one party, we don't go under the banner of one individual. We all step up, and this is a moment to step up.
Now, the mayor has 5 more minutes with us. He has to go and meet with President Biden, who's in LA. So I'll go to Jaime right after him. And Jaime, I promise I'll give you 2 questions in a row. But Mr. Mayor, what do you think this this situation, what impact might it have on the Latino vote? We have an election coming up on November 8th, very critical election. Will this discourage people from participating? Will it reinforce the this feeling that you can't trust politicians, that politicians are only in it for themselves?
I think the mayor is muted.
Mayor, I think you're
Sorry, I
muted.
was going to say,
Okay.
sorry,
good.
my apologies. I was saying it's the first time I've ever upstaged Jaime Camille, but then I upstaged myself by not unmuting. So Jaime is a dear friend, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say. But that is the core question, Juan Carlos. And thank you, Rosario, for so beautifully summarizing how we feel, and Helen for being so principled and loving at the same time. We have to express, not just in this election, who we are. We are 50% of this, America's second biggest city. And yet we had 17% of people who are registered to vote from the Latino community turn out for the primary. When we had, by the way, Latino on the ballot, Mr. De Leon at the time. We have to say who we are. We have to show up and build those coalitions. I do think that it should be the opposite. People should realize how critical it is that they choose a leader who can bring communities together, who has experience working between Black and Brown communities, who knows what coalitions are about, and who will show an inclusive administration. I'm very proud in my administration that we've had, my chief of staff is African American, my deputy chief of staff, I've had my longtime chief of staff was Latina. We have, folks who are from every community. And you have to say at this moment, not just I will vote, but I will hold accountable and ask the candidates to make sure. I know that we always focus on election day. What will you do between elections? Because the Latino community will only be inspired to vote when we are inspired by the service that we see, and that we feel that our issues, which aren't just always immigration, they're education, they're the environment, all the things that are important to our quality of life and our health and our families, that people will be focused on that and bring us into the administration. So I would say do two things: hold both candidates accountable for who they will bring in, and get out there and vote, because in a city where we're 50% of the population, unfortunately, we're only about half of that in the voters. And then we only did 17% of 25%. That means people can ignore our vote if we don't show up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for joining us, for being part of the Citizen by CNN. And if you want to follow our political coverage, and we'll have this banner on our screen, but you can go to cnn.com/election/2022. All the information is there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mil gracias.
Hope you have a successful meeting this afternoon. Now I'll go to Jaime and to the panel. Jaime, first of all, we're talking before we started this conversation about the success of El Rey, your latest production. You've been at this for a long time, at least 27 years. I'm pretty sure it hasn't been easy. So what is your reaction when you hear conversations like what was leaked, and this political crisis in a city you're close to, that is close to that you're involved in, Los Angeles?
It is really heartbreaking, Juan Carlos. First of all, thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be with these panelists that I respect so much. It's heartbreaking. I don't think I can be more eloquent than the mayor, our mayor, Helen or Rosario. It is heartbreaking without a doubt, but I also think that it's an amazing opportunity when we are faced with these mistakes, with these adversities, with these obstacles. I think it's an amazing opportunity to be better and to learn from them. And I think Rosario or Helen mentioned that we are not defined by three individuals, that regardless of their accomplishments, we should not throw away the very unfortunate conversations that were leaked. But I think that this is why it's very important to vote, to show up, to for our community, for our voice to be heard. Because, like the mayor said before leaving, not only the midterm elections, but the local elections and all of those really help. We could help put people in power that will benefit and will look after our community and all communities in general. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can add anything to what my fellow panelists have said about that situation. It's heartbreaking, but it is an opportunity, without a doubt, to be better, to learn from mistakes, and to overcome them, and just be better.
Do you expect any impact on people deciding to vote? You've been vocal about people participating, being part of the system, recognizing the importance of their citizenship and the right to go and vote and make a difference. What do you tell people who are watching us and feel discouraged and say, why would I participate if that's what they say about me behind closed doors?
Well, don't be discouraged because our vote can swing elections. The Latino vote can decide who will be in power. So please don't get discouraged by the mistakes or unfortunate comments, heartbreaking comments of three individuals. Don't be discouraged because, like Rosario and Helen, they were saying, it, it doesn't define us. It doesn't define our community, and we have to vote, and our voice needs to be heard, regardless of the unfortunate actions of three individuals. We have to go out and vote because our vote makes a difference, and our vote definitely can decide elections.
And this will be your first election
As an American citizen, yes,
in the US. Okay. So I'm going to
in the
open up to
US, correct.
questions. Yeah, I'm going to open to questions from our viewers. I'll go first from Henrietta from California. And she says, what can we do to heal our community after this painful betrayal by wounding words and double standards from people we trusted in politics, representing minorities and people of color? Helen.
We can vote in new leadership, and we have to be very hopeful. I get to work with youth all the time. They have such an incredible way of bringing in community, really speaking to a way to strengthen our democracy that's very inclusive. So that's what we can do. But I also want to challenge all of us to not think of leadership just from a political getting elected lens. All of us are leaders in our communities when we step up, when we volunteer, when we participate on commissions and boards. And all of us need to use this as an opportunity to ensure that this is not a moment of just it's a moment to double down on what is good in our community and lift up those voices, lift up those leaders, and really ask ourselves, how are we showing up as leaders and looking for those opportunities? So that's how we heal. You know, we first have to acknowledge that there's a problem. Second, we need to ensure that we're building community together in a very inclusive way. And then thirdly, we need to make room for new leadership and to ensure that they have the training and the resources so they can make the best decisions on our behalf, but that we need to see ourselves as those leaders as well.
Rosario, we've been working on elections for many years. You know, we worked on a project recently on the Mexican vote in the United States, and I remember one thing you said that really struck me. You said you don't wait for things to come to you. If you want representation, you grab it, you fight for it. That's been your motto, and you've called out your own party when you've had to. So I'd like to read you a question from Gonzalo, who's in California, and he says, what political movement are you expecting to see, if any, in Southern California, particularly in the Los Angeles area, during this coming midterm election to motivate the Latino vote and to come out and vote?
Yeah. So, I wrote a book a few years back, and within it, I have a segment that I talk about. While I may be disappointed, I will not be discouraged. Things happen, and certainly in politics throughout our nation, and certainly I've been in this business for more than 30 years. Um, we may be disappointed. We may be disappointed by individual actions. We may be disappointed by collective actions. We may be disappointed by our leaders, but we can never be discouraged. We must harness the greatness that there is within our community to seek that representation. The only way we're going to do it, Juan Carlos, and I have encouraged people to go out there and vote for more than 30 years. We drove, people to the polls. I have done everything that I can to encourage more people to participate, to vote, because that is the only tool that we have to increase our political power is through our vote. And we may be disappointed. I am. We may be disappointed, but we cannot be discouraged. We cannot allow something like this, as heartbreaking as it is, to prevent us from seeking the political power that we deserve, that we have worked so hard to achieve. And we must redouble the efforts to get people to the polls. Latinos will play a critical role in this coming elections across the United States, not just in LA. I know the question was for LA, but we have the power to really elect people across the United States that will represent us, that will look out for our best interests, for our families, for our senior citizens, for our people with disabilities. The only way that we can do that is through our vote. So I will encourage everybody to go out there and vote. Vote for the person that you believe will have your best interest. And whether we're talking about the economy, education, criminal, social justice, immigration, certainly look at the candidate, understand what his policies are, understand what his background is, and then vote for the best person that you think that will help our community. Um, the only thing that I can do is encourage people. I am going to vote. I take my family to vote. I take my neighbors to get there and vote. So in California, we mail in our ballots, and that's really wonderful. So I encourage everybody to do that as soon as possible.
Jaime, as we said, you recently became a U.S. citizen. You're going to vote for the first time. What does that mean to you to be able to participate and to do it in such a critical moment of American history? And because depending on what happens on November 8th, we'll see what happens for the rest of the Biden presidency and where the U.S. goes, regardless of which way you decide to vote. But what does it mean to Jaime Camil to now be a direct part of this political process? You have been following it, but now you will be able to cast your vote. Like many people, many choose not to, but it's a privilege to have.
It is a privilege. Yeah, you took the word out of my mouth. It's a privilege. It's an honor to be able to vote. I mean, politicians, they work for us. We employ them in a way. So we have to put the best person in the job, or the best person we think is going to be the best person for the job. I will add also, because I'm an actor, I work my emotions. I touch those emotions. I think that not only studying the candidates' platforms and what they are supporting, or what is their agenda, we also, this might sound a little crazy, but this is what I do. This is what my job. Also, how you feel the candidates. Like, try to go to town halls. Try to understand, feel the essence of the candidate. That could also help decide your vote in many ways. I know it helps me tremendously when I get to meet candidates, go town halls, go to their, when I connect to their Zoom, town halls, the virtual town halls they do. I that helps me a lot as well. Not only their platforms and what are they campaigning on, but also their character. And you might say that is difficult character from looking, him or her, but it does mean a lot. But in this village, it is a very important, just like Rosario said and Helen said, don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged, because we have the power of electing the officials that will represent us based on what we believe, regardless of our political inclination or party. These politicians will represent us and will work for us. So we have to show up and vote.
Okay, so we're talking about today Voto Latino in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month. That was what we were preparing for, and we had this scandal grew up in LA that changed the conversation. But Helen, we were talking before this leaked about what's going to happen with immigration, what's going to happen with DACA, the Deferred Action Program, that is in the hands of a court that ruled last week that it was unconstitutional, but left it in place while they study a rule presented by the Biden administration. How critical is immigration going to be in this election and going forward if the Democrats, for example, lose the House? And how critical will it be to DACA? We've seen already proposals from Republicans to completely do away with the program and to freeze immigration during 4 years. So, what is the message now in the middle of this election process? What will DACA signify in the coming weeks? And what will happen if people don't use their vote?
Well, if people don't use their vote, and if people that believe that children that were brought here in the United States that are seen and experienced the beauty of growing up in the United States and count themselves as citizens and have been productive in our country, if if they want to protect them and make sure they're on a pathway to citizenship, they have to vote for leaders that are going to make that happen. So what is at stake? What is at stake is not only ensuring the humanity of realizing these incredible human beings that are part of our community day in and day out to ensure that they get citizenship, but also a big loss of economic opportunities for our communities, an economic engine, specifically here in California. A lot of DACA students and a lot of DACA recipients are strong. They have jobs. They're business owners. They own homes. So if we don't get this right, and if we don't have good legislation that fix our immigration system, we're going to continue having this conversation that is not moving forward, and we're going to continue seeing children, students, and workers and business owners in flux, and that's not good for our community. That's not good for our state, our nation, and it's not good for our democracy. So we have to be strong and keep fighting for DACA recipients. Right now, the current ones that do have DACA seem to be protected. We hope that continues at the minimum. But we need to fix this broken immigration system, and we need to vote in people that are willing to work together to come with the strong solutions that will be reflective of the needs of our community and the contributions of our community.
Rosario, there's a question from Henrietta from Texas from the beginning, and I'll read it, but I'm gonna bring this to the issue of immigration. She says, "Why are we losing ourselves in the lies that are being spread by those on the right, turning us against one another?" Now, immigration is a subject where you've heard promises from all sides, and you've seen those promises not being kept by all sides. Um, what point are we are now, and how confident are you that something might happen before the next Congress is inaugurated when it hasn't happened in the last 20 years?
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the things that really, really gets my blood boiling, because as much as we want to finger point the Republicans regarding immigration, the reality is that both parties, when they had the opportunity to do something about immigration, they failed to do. And we can excuse it. I mean, well, they can excuse it. They can come up with, well, we had other priorities, or we needed to do health reform, and or we were dealing with the pandemic, whatever. The reality is that DACA specifically, forget about immigration reform, DACA is something that even Republicans, 80% of Republicans are okay with that. Why haven't we done that? And I will put this to the current administration. You could have done this. You couldn't, you should not have had to rely on executive action when what we know we needed was legislative action. And so I will put it to a question to this administration. You have had 2 years to do this, and if you don't do it from now until uh, January, when the new Congress comes in, and if we lose that, we may not have that opportunity again. And I'm not talking about full immigration reform. I'm just talking about DACA. So I think that we need to hold these people accountable. Um, Congress, senators, and certainly this administration. The leadership counts. Leadership makes a difference. And if this was really important and this community is really important, then show it and come up with at least one legislative proposal to deal at least with DACA. And then we can deal with immigration in the next Congress. You know, I know we can have all the excuses, but enough with the excuses.
Now, I have another question, Jaime, and I think you're the one who can answer it. At least you have the information is more fresh in your mind than it is. I went through the process some years ago. I know Rosario did. Helen is from the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, so she didn't have to go through this. But Laila from Massachusetts is asking, what can we do to become a U.S. citizen, those who qualify, and be able to vote in 2024 elections?
Oh, wow. Well, I can, yeah, of course. Well, I became, I had a green card first. I became a resident, a resident. And after, I believe their green card lasts for 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. And after 5 years being a resident, then you to become a citizen. 6 apply for citizenship, and thankfully the process was, it is a process that, but fortunately, I became a citizen within, I would say, 4 months, if I'm not mistaken, 5 months after applying for citizenship, and it was in the middle of the pandemic, December 2020. Office, the immigration office, once it was an ATM, we took the oath by ourselves, and it was a very beautiful ceremony, and muy emocionante. Um, but I guess just I just follow whatever, follow the steps. I don't know what her immigration status is. Depending on her status, she should follow the steps and go to the USCIS offices and apply for citizenship, and hopefully the process will be fast enough for her to be able to vote.
And in this case, Laila, um, the best thing to do is ask an attorney. But if you don't have an attorney, there are many reputable community organizations that can help you and guide you. There is a fee you have to pay if you have the requirements, but it is a process that can be fast and can give you the right to vote. Now, Jaime, we're talking about representation. The fact that people see you and see what you've been able to accomplish, young people. Well, the DACA recipients are, we could say, the best of the best, and even they are being rejected. What do you tell those young people who are happy because they have this temporary status, but they don't have legal status and might feel that nobody really cares about them?
Juan Carlos, what can it's like Rosario was saying and Helen was saying, it's such a no-brainer. The fact that no one, or some people, it's I it gets me so mad that I cannot even put words together. All right, but the fact that some people see problems or obstacles when it comes to DACA blows my mind. Those are the ones, like you very well said, that's a no-brainer. That's I mean, the DACA recipients should be the first ones to benefit from 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 our officials helping them normalize their immigration status. I don't even know where to begin with this. Like Rosario was saying, it's mind blowing, the fact that some people might, enough with excuse. Just do it. You have the power to do it. You're in office. Fix their status. If someone deserves to be, for their status to be normalized or regularized, is them.
Now we have a question. Um, Jackie from Colorado says, Jean Guerrero from the LA Times said it well about these politicians. Behind closed doors, they sound like former President Trump. So why isn't there Democratic leaders calling on them to resign immediately? Where's the Latino congressmen and congresswomen denouncing this? Now, Helen, President Biden, on an interview on CNN, called for their resignation. Former Mayor Villaraigosa, NALEO, the National Association of Latino Elected Leaders, called for their resignation. Other members of the political establishment in California, Democrats in Congress did. So there is a difference, but I think there is a point that goes into how, behind closed doors, politicians behave many times in the same way, even though publicly they say different things. What is the challenge when Hope is preparing leaders for the future, and how do you instill these values, and how do you train them to adequately represent not only the community but their families and themselves?
So there's, Hope has leadership programs that range from high school to the executive level. When we're training mid-career women and Latinas that are at the executive level, I always said their values are already baked. It's they are who they are. What we're really doing is demystifying the process in which for them to advance in their careers or advance as civic leaders. However, there's always this incredible opportunity, and there's an incredible opportunity with everyone, right? We can always be better. We can always call for the better angels inside of us. But there is this incredible opportunity with our youth and with our college students, and that's what really gets me excited because they are leading differently. And ethics and leading with ethics is incredibly important if you're a politician, a corporate leader, or if you're, the leader of your family. And I really ask people to think about the dialogues they're having around the kitchen table. What are we demonstrating to our children about how we discuss difficult issues, how we talk about how we may disagree with individuals, that we don't always make the individual that you disagree with as a villain, and but you really look for ways to build consensus. That starts with family. So as an organization, we do have unbiased trainings, unbiased conscious trainings that we have our women go through. Our young Latinas that go through our trainings, we also have those trainings with them. But at the end of the day, this starts with our families. And then we have to be the leaders that we have to reflect these values. I think the combination of that, there's not one solution, but we do have to walk away knowing that when we're wherever we are, we have to speak with our heart, as the mayor has said. We have to be reflective of our values. Open door or closed door, show up with who you are as an authentic person and be sure that that authentic person is being inclusive of all our communities.
Rosario, how do you harness all that talent that is out there? Many Latinos, Latinas who are taking the path. How do you make sure that 20 years from now, they're not repeating this conduct?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're all human beings. Many of us make mistakes. Most of us will do the right thing and recognize that we made a mistake and follow our hearts. I'm grateful that Nuri has resigned, and that was the right thing to do. And I think it also serves as an example for many leaders uh, that you know be careful with what's in your heart because it will come out of your mouth. And so I think that we're going to have to be very, very careful. I think that all are going to have to reflect on our own biases and understand that if we are leading and we have put in if we have been placed in positions of authority, that that we need to earn that respect, and we need to earn every day with our actions the respect of the communities that place us there. I, it's I think this has been an incredible experience for many leaders across all races, all creeds, all religions, all sexual orientations. I think we can all learn from it. And I think more importantly, we can create a path for each one of us to be better leaders. I think we need to recognize our own biases. I think we need to understand that we can change that, that our values should dictate our leadership position, and if not, you know, I don't want to be sarcastic. I don't want to be negative. I'm just really hopeful that we all have learned from this and that we all become the better leaders that I know it's in each one of us. And so I don't want to be sarcastic and think, well, we're going to get more of the same. I hope not. I really hope not. I think we are far better collectively and individually than what three individuals did.
We're running into are in time, but I have a question I promised Helen before, and I will ask that same question to Jaime after her. Helen, how are we doing? How do you see media representation, and what, how is that impacting?
Oh, well, we're not doing too great in media representation. Uh, I get so excited when we see Jaime on the big screen, when we see him on Netflix, when our stories are being told by our own Latinos and Latinas. That's incredible. We've seen, I think, we have to be fair, some steps moving forward. When we all show up for a film that is made and produced and has Latino actors, we help with that representation as well. So we have to show up and be good consumers and support our Latino actors, producers, and directors and writers. But there is so critical that we're telling our stories. Our narrative cannot be owned by others individuals. It has to be owned by us, and we have to support each other in that. And so, a big fan of Jaime and all his work and his beautiful voice.
Thank
And
you.
there's so much talent and lovely sentiments and stories that are yet to be shared. And I'm excited. I'm excited to hear those stories. But we also have to fight for that representation, and we have to show up for each other.
Jaime.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Helen. You're so sweet. Thank you so much for your kind words. They bring warmth to my heart. Thank you. But yeah, you're right. I mean, can you imagine? I was the second Latino to lead a CBS sitcom after Desi Arnaz. So it took them 60 years. I mean, small steps, right? But yeah, we need more representation without doubt. We represent the percentage. I don't have the exact number in my mind right now, but it's so small, the percentage of Latino leads in Hollywood productions. At the same time, I don't think that we should play the Latino card. Let's say a show gets canceled because the writing was poor or the acting wasn't top notch and it gets canceled, then we're not allowed to play the Latino card on that very specific case, right? So we have to be better. We have to write, but definitely, there is a huge disparity when it comes to Latino representation in Hollywood in the mainstream media. But we have to keep showing up and we have to keep producing. I have a first look deal with Paramount Plus, and every single production I'm producing or creating content, it's always has that. One of the elements is that represent accurately and honorably our community, and that's the most important thing.
And it's interesting because I saw there's a series on Netflix, Lincoln Lawyer, starred by your fellow Mexican Manuel Garcia Rufo. And the book originally, the main character is Mexican American. The movie that was made with Matthew McConaughey, he wasn't Mexican American, but in the series he is. So we do see changes coming. Now, before I sign off, I just want to get a quick word from each one of you on what you expect for this rest of Hispanic Heritage Month. We could start with Jaime.
Let's celebrate our independence. In many countries, we are celebrating our great independence and our achievements. So let's keep celebrating responsibly, and let's keep bringing, uplifting, and showcasing the beauty of our culture.
I'll go to Rosario Marin.
Thank you. What do we celebrate? We celebrate our contributions to this great nation. We celebrate where we come from. And more importantly, we celebrate what's to come. I am profoundly grateful to this country for the opportunities that it has given me, but more importantly, what it has given to all of our community. It gives us the opportunity to contribute, to give, because that's who we are. We come to give. We don't come to take. We come to give. We give our best. We give our most. We have the strongest work ethic, um, and so that's what we celebrate: who we are and who we are to become.
Helen.
So we're working hard to organize Latinas to go out and vote. So we can do that under the banner of celebrating our heritage and making sure that our democracy is strong. Latinas have contributed tremendously to the economic well-being of this country and to the civic society of this country. Let's continue that. Let's not be afraid or let's just keep on going forward. I run an organization by the name of Hope, and I think Latino Heritage Month is a time to be hopeful as we reflect of our contributions, but it's also a time to take action. Let's make sure we're registered to vote and that we're casting those votes.
Thank you, Helen. One thing I like about the Lincoln Lawyer, I said when I was watching it, so someone is a main character who sounds like me, and that was interesting. We're nearing the end. I want to thank Jaime, Rosario, Helen, and I want to invite you all to find all our political coverage on cnn.com/election/2022. You'll see it on screen. You can go there to get all the information we have. We're going to be covering both on CNN and CNN en Español. Invitation to follow us in Voto Latino. And after thanking our guests and thanking you for joining us, I want to give the floor to Senior Vice President and Managing Director of CNN en Español, my boss, Cynthia Hudson. She's going to close off the event. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you for participating. And thank you, Citizen by CNN, for dedicating this space to the importance of the Latino vote. Cynthia, adelante.
Gracias, Juan Carlos. And thank you also to our distinguished panel, to Mayor Garcetti, who left a little bit earlier, Jaime, Rosario, and Helen. I want to just end this wonderful experience that we've had with Citizen by really talking about this idea of privilege and responsibility that so many of you mentioned in your various comments this afternoon. Citizen participation is clearly at the root of a stable democracy. And Los Angeles, which is my hometown, I was born in Los Angeles, is such an important example of the diversity of Latino communities, of ethnicities, and even of political inclinations. And so, nationwide, I want to remind everybody that a quarter of all Generation Z Americans are of Latino descent. And so, we really need to enforce accountability, as you guys discussed today. The accountability of our elected officials, the accountability of even us as journalists, because our job is to provide the facts about our elected officials, about the political currents, about truth. And that really has to help us to lead our citizenry to make the choices necessary to find leaders that will represent them and what they believe are the right path for our country. And so for me, these panels are so, so important to give a voice and to have this conversation amongst leaders in different areas of our community. I want to kind of end this thinking that really the words of Obama keep ringing in my ear as you all are speaking: don't complain, vote. And I think getting our Hispanics communities to be participating in this great privilege of democracy is so important. And I thank you all for what you do. And I hope that we can continue the conversation. And again, I want to thank Citizen and CNN for including these voices and our voices, and the opportunity for CNN en Español and CNN to partner together. And I want to remind everybody to go to the cnnpolitics.com website, to cnn.com, with the same direction and address that Juan Carlos gave you. So thank you all very much. I wish you all a wonderful day, and I hope to see that we can overcome these adverse moments and really show the communities how important it is to participate. Thank you all.